Hello and welcome back to Walk the Cinema podcast. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about Fight Club.
You forgot to say what the first rule of Walk the Cinema is.
Don't talk about Walk the Cinema?
No, it's subscribe and leave us a 5-star rating.
Clever.
Thank you. Anyways, before we get into the movie, this is the first episode of the year. Which new year, new movies, there's always expectations. At least with me, where after the holidays, I tell myself I'm going to sit down and watch a bunch of great films I haven't seen before. So what are your movie plans for the year?
I feel like I at least maintained a good watch level pretty consistently throughout the year this year, so just kind of maintaining that. I do kind of hope that whenever the Oscar nominations come out that I will watch more of it so I can have more of an informed opinion on what I liked, what I didn't like. But nothing too specific right now.
Okay. I feel like I did pretty good last year too, where I watched a bunch of directors I wanted to watch, a lot of more deep cut type stuff. And I just want to keep that going as well. Delve deeper into the story and not just the surface level of the Spielbergs and the David Finchers, which we're going to be talking about today. Fight Club, David Fincher, Brad Pitt, Edward Norton.
Yeah.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was thoroughly entertaining all the way through.
And as much as it's one of the most popular movies of all time, there's a reason for that. It really is good. And some people will say it's not that deep. Other people will say it's really deep. I think it has a lot of messages. And it might get a little cloudy in that sense, where some people get different things out of it. Some people think it's about badass men. Some people think it's the opposite of it.
Yeah.
So it might be its own fault that it tries to do so much that it confuses people. But maybe it's up to you to make your own message, and it's not the film's fault.
Yeah.
Because I didn't get anything negative from this film, which a lot of people do.
Yeah, I don't think it's trying to sell you a bad message, to be honest, because I feel like a lot of criticism that I've seen, this was my first watch through.
Yeah, we got recommended this a couple times.
Yeah.
But I don't remember everyone that recommended this, but I do remember one of my friends, Ricardo, recommended this. So here's your shout out.
Yeah, thank you. But I feel like kudos to the people around me for not spoiling this. I feel like it came close. I had a professor a couple years ago almost give away the ending, which we're going to be talking about the ending anyway. Right. We're not going to not spoil this, but yeah, I feel like the criticisms that I've heard in the past was that it was like the incel anthem.
And I think,
but I feel like it doesn't. It's not sprouting that message.
Right. It's not the movie's fault.
Yeah.
It's the incel's fault or whatever. Not that I don't want to go there because it doesn't really matter to me, and it's not something I believe in where we're putting people in groups. But I do think there's a segment of men that might take the wrong message out of this and say, oh, well, I want to be like Tyler Durden.
Yeah.
And that's Edward Norton wants to be like Tyler Durden. Like, that's the movie.
Yeah.
He's imagining this man that he wants to be like.
Yeah.
He's imagining the guy that stands out in the room by the way he dresses, by the way he talks, by the way he looks. He's a guy that's sure of himself. He doesn't need the system to be happy. He doesn't need a regular job, a regular house.
Yeah.
That's who Edward Norton wants to be, but by the end he realizes that he doesn't want it.
Yeah, he thinks that it's gone too far and that he's uncaring and, truly is uncaring. Like, I think that's the main point that, like, makes him not want to be like Tyler anymore because, towards the end, Bob dies. And he's kind of like, this is a person. This was not just a random guy, faceless guy. He's a real person that had real problems, that had real emotions.
Right.
And the same thing with Marla's character, or Helena Bonham Carter's character, Marla, where he kind of the Tyler persona treats her like garbage.
Mm-hmm.
and the narrator persona treats her like a human.
And I think it's the interpersonal relationships that make it obvious to him that this is not who he wants.
Yeah.
Because it's not necessarily like, fuck the system, screw your job, you're better than the things you own. Those are not necessarily wrong or bad, but it's taking it to the extreme where you're
harming people.
Yeah, you're treating people badly because you care too much about yourself.
Yeah. And just to kind of, rewind, I guess, on the movie, because we kind of skipped right to the end. Like, end themes, I guess. The beginning part is really interesting. He suffers from insomnia. Our narrator, we don't know his name. He goes by tons of different names because he goes to these support groups, and it's the only way that he can release the emotions that he has, which allow him to sleep, because he works for an insurance company, or not an insurance company, rather a car company, and his job is to assess the value of killing people, essentially, because some of these things that he's looking at are defects in the car that cause people to die, and he has to calculate what that person's life is worth to the company.
Right, they're a statistic.
Yeah. And so he goes to these support groups, and I think it allows him to make him feel better, because he gets to talk about his sadness, even if it doesn't pertain to even if he has to act like he has testicular cancer, or that he's dying, or that he has tuberculosis, all these different things. And he gets to listen to other people, and they get to cry together,
Yeah. That's his release. It's his connection to humanity. It's how he feels human and, is able to sleep, because he's not building up all the bad things inside. Which then he switches later on to releasing those through the Fight Club.
Because Marla shows up to these...
Yeah, she ruins it.
Yeah.
Which is how the movie starts. He actually blames her for everything.
Yeah.
At the first minute of the movie.
And, maybe that's correct. Maybe she is the reason why all of these things happen. But either way, she is kind of like him, where this is the only thing that makes her feel human. Or feel heard, listened to. Because she's kind of... I would say, like, the lower end of society, if we subscribe to that, where she lives in, like, a dingy apartment, she takes pills, she does,
She has casual sex.
Yeah.
She doesn't care about her own life.
Yeah. And so he can't cry in front of her because she's also a faker. And so it makes him go crazy again, I guess, with insomnia. And so he meets Brad Pitt, Tyler, on a plane. At least that's what we're led to believe.
Right.
And that's kind of when the switch happens, is because he's so tired and so, emotionally worn down that his mind creates a separate personality to take over. It's
in one of those trips where he wakes up somewhere, doesn't know what time of the day he is because he loses an hour, gains an hour. He's traveling across state lines, and he just doesn't even know who he is anymore or where he is.
Yeah.
And I think that state creates also the lack of sleep, the lack of being able to cry. It contributes to the Tyler Durden character, which is not obvious from the get-go that it's another, but
I think as the movie progresses,
they drop hints from the beginning, which if you know what's going to happen, you on a second, third watch, you see the hints.
Yeah. And so this was my first watch, but I kind of had an inkling that there was something going on with mental things. I didn't know exactly what, but I kind of had an inkling of something going on. But I feel right around the point where, I think it's most noticeable when it's the narrator, Tyler, and Marla interacting in a scene together, because it's Tyler and Marla are never really interacting at all.
And Tyler says, "Don't mention me."
Yeah. So I feel that's when I noticed it the most.
Right. And
where it kind of gives me the hint that they might be the same person.
And the narrator has visions of her having sex with Tyler. But there's other smaller hints, like when they're renting a car.
Yeah.
The rent guy says, "Here you go, Mr. Durden," and he's looking straight at Edward Norton. There's like flashes.
Yeah.
In the beginning, before we meet Tyler, there's flashes of Tyler. Where, I mean, you don't know what it is, but it's something. David Fincher did a really good job with this, by the way. The author of the book himself says that the movie is a step up from the book in every way. And that's partly because of the director. Because if we're just going off of the screenplay and the adaptation, it wouldn't be better than the book, right?
Right.
So you need a lot of talent in all fronts. You need a good book to be based off of. You need a good cast of characters.
Yeah.
Which, the main cast is really good. I have a little bit of a problem with the side cast. Like, Roast Beef.
Meatloaf.
That's the guy. Meatloaf. It's not his fault. I just think they play him a little too goofy. And I get it that at the beginning he's goofy because he's like not realistic. He's the guy got his balls cut. He was a bodybuilder. Now he has bitch tits, whatever they call it.
Yeah.
But by the end, when he dies, it's like, this was a real man. And I get that in a way, but it still kind of brings me off. Or this character doesn't seem to fit in.
Yeah.
And I also don't like Jared Leto because it's Jared Leto, but that's it. I like him getting beat.
Right.
Who doesn't want to beat Jared Leto? Who's an actual fan of him? Leave it in the comments if you actually like him.
Yeah, I really liked the main cast. Like, I feel like pretty much every movie I've seen Brad Pitt in, I enjoy. I think he's a really good actor, and I feel like sometimes people forget that he's a good actor.
Yeah, he got casted as, like, the pretty boy of Hollywood.
Yeah.
Which, sure, he might be, but, like,
he's good.
So versatile.
Yeah.
Like, he really kills it almost always, except when he does those historical dramas where he doesn't commit fully.
Yeah. And I feel like this was the first movie that I've seen Helena Bonham Carter in that I've like felt like she was an actress and not just kind of like a popcorn type movie person.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Her character also goes through development where she starts as like, she's the opposite, or like she's kind of the narrator, but she's also the opposite of the narrator.
Yeah.
And she doesn't feel too real. She feels like a caricature.
Yeah.
And as she goes through the movie and we see her
progress.
Yeah, it's not even her progressing. I think it's the narrator coming to reality and seeing that she's a normal woman that is not okay to be used and doesn't feel okay with being used.
Yeah. And I mean, that was another thing that like we kind of see we do see Marla and Tyler alone together, but only when the narrator is not in the picture. As soon as you have all three of them, they're not all three together interacting.
And she always talks to him. She's the character that always talks to him as if it's Tyler.
Yeah.
I feel like when she's leaving the house, like, you have issues, and he's like, I'm just kicking you out because he asked me. But she knows no one asked him. Or when, like, it's the scene that a lot of people think it's hilarious when Brad Pitt comes out of the door having sex with her and he has a rubber glove on. And it is funny, to be fair, because he just has a rubber glove.
Yeah.
But when he closes the door, she's like, who are you talking to?
Yeah.
There's only another person that lives there, so if they're both real, obviously he's talking to the other person that lives there.
Yeah.
But there's no one else there.
Yeah.
So she's the only one that always talks to them the same.
Yeah.
She never separates them.
Yeah. But yeah, she does go through like it seems like she's a real person, and I feel like that was done purposefully, you know?
She comes as the character that's always smoking, always kind of taking advantage of the situation.
Yeah.
Not that the narrator isn't.
Yeah.
But she comes off as even more somehow. But then, yeah, by the end, she's a real person, and he realizes that, and you can't just use her, you can't hurt her.
Yeah. And then the narrator, played by Edward Norton, who is the real person. Like I guess, I don't know how people with multiple personalities call it, but there's like the head personality, and I guess
I don't think this is multiple personalities.
I think it is. I think 'cause it's the same. It builds on the same, like, obviously this doesn't happen, you know, like this particular type of thing where like one is kind of evil and decides to blow up buildings in multiple cities, you know? But either way, but Edward Norton is the true person. Like, he is the body. And I don't know. I think that Edward Norton does a good job. I usually picture Edward Norton as like a villain. Just in everything. I don't typically like him. Which I might have mentioned before.
For Fight Club, he came off of his most dynamic role, I would say, in American History X, where he was huge, so he had to lose a lot of weight for this. But he also changed a lot about the characters, where he kind of played a villain, but it's kind of a redemption story. So he starts as the villain, kind of works through that.
Yeah.
In this, it's kind of the same in a way. Like, different type of character, but kind of the same redemption arc, but with more bumps. Where he's wimpy, and then he becomes not wimpy. He like grabs his own life by the throat. Yeah. And then he kind of becomes a little wimpy again, where he's like, "Where's Tyler? I need to fix this."
Yeah, and then he becomes like self-aware.
Yeah.
And I think the self-awareness is the part that's the best, you know? Where you see things for as they are and what they should be, kind of. But we were talking while we were watching this movie about the cultural effects that this might have had on the times. Right.
And you can't deny that this was, and still is, one of the most influential movies in culture. Maybe not for other movies. It is influential in media, where media copies a lot of stuff from this.
Yeah, I felt like this had the same vibe as another movie that we covered last year, I believe. It was 2021, right? 2022, sorry. But it was Snatched, where I feel like it has very similar vibes, where it's kind of seedy dealings, but then you have a narrator that's kind of the overarching kind of person bringing the story together.
Yeah, but there are different narrators, where this is an untrustworthy narrator, where nothing he says is the reality. It's just from his point of view. Where it's Snatch, he's just telling you facts.
Yeah, I just said it's like the same vibes, but I like this one better.
This is better, yeah. It's better in every way. Yeah. Especially if you directly compare them. This is funnier to me. Snatch is more of a outright comedy than this. But this is very funny. Yeah. Like, I find myself laughing a lot of times. I think this is a near perfect movie in a lot of ways.
I could see that, yeah. And it's almost I don't know. I definitely feel like there is a target audience, and I am not necessarily the target audience.
I don't think you're right.
I feel like
I think
right.
the people that would be considered the target audience aren't necessarily the target audience. I think there's just the ones that like feel what Edward Norton feels. And that's why they want to be Tyler Durden. It's misguided maybe a little. Maybe.
But I wondered how many fight clubs this started.
It did. It definitely did. I don't have like numbers or anything. I didn't look it up. But I remember hearing about it. And this did start it, which is not the message of the movie. No. It's not go out and fight. Which, honestly, I do believe two consensual adults can do whatever they want. And if it's to fight each other, they're not hurting anyone else. So you can have your own fight club. I don't care.
Yeah, I just can't imagine, like, women doing that, though. You know what I mean?
It's for the boys.
It is. I feel. Like, not...
The fighting in itself is not even the central thing of the movie.
No, it is kind of there, though, I think, it is cathartic for all the characters.
Yeah, it's all their releases. It's something that, as men, they can easily understand as a release more than crying at a support group. Yeah. But, I mean, it's just a release. It's a violent release that keeps building up as an anti-system underground, we're outside of the grid type thing, where now we're going to destroy the credit card companies. Yeah. We're going to cause chaos.
But it's not causing, or it's not fixing, like, whatever the root of the problem
is.
Right,
they still have their problems. Yeah. And they still need to fight to get that out. And they still need the violence to get that out. And that's the real issue.
Yeah, there's no end point for anybody. Right.
Because I'm okay with you fighting someone else that's consensual if you're not hurting anybody else. But at the same time, that's not a permanent release.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to be okay forever because you fought someone a couple of times.
Yeah.
It might be like fixing your problem in the moment because you let out your frustrations.
Mm-hmm.
But long term, it's not going to do anything. And that's what it does to Edward Norton.
Yeah, he gets nothing from it. Like, and he still feels...
He ruins his life.
Yeah.
He ruins everything he built. He explodes his own apartment with all the things that he owns that own him.
Mm-hmm.
Which that part I kind of understand.
Yeah.
He's liberating himself from the
things...
formulaic life that fits into a catalog.
Yeah. And then, I don't know. I like the scene. I like the end scene where he kind of kills Tyler by shooting himself through the throat.
Mm-hmm.
But and he doesn't, the narrator doesn't die at the end of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
They just kind of watch, but I feel like, I don't know, maybe...
I don't know if he dies or not. They're like watching the explosions.
Yeah, they do watch the explosions, and that's...
And then it kind of burns, fades out, shows you the penis that Brad Pitt was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
But it kind of leaves there. Like, we don't know. I mean, I'm sure his life is destroyed either he dies or not, but...
Yeah, because, I mean, he already, like, told the police that this was going to happen, and then it did.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know.
I like that members
there's probably some repercussions.
I like that members of the police were part of this Project Mayhem. By now, it's not the Fight Club.
Yeah. Kind
of like that it's just absorbing
everybody.
But it's always the lower... Like, it's not the police chief.
Yeah.
It's the people that work for him. Because they're the ones that feel frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
Not the guy that has it all. Or has the higher job.
Yeah.
He's fine.
Yeah.
It's a really good movie. It's funny. I like the action. I like the drama. There's very few things I don't like, except maybe some of the fan base. Like, the hardcore fan base that thinks Tyler's the hero.
Right.
That's maybe what... I think... The only thing wrong about the movie is its reputation. Which sucks.
Yeah. But I think it's a good movie. I think it's probably the best Fincher that I've seen. Granted, I haven't seen all of his movies, but I feel like it's the one that entertained me the most and one that I would probably revisit at some point. So I gave this a 9 out of 10. Again, my ratings are arbitrary, as people may know, and I feel like I can't give it a 10 just because I don't think it's one of, like, a movie that I'm going to feel nostalgic about in a few years, or, you know, have, like, this feeling of longing to watch it, I guess. But I will watch it again, and I think that I will be entertained, and it'll be fun to see, I think, on a second, third rewatch, the things that you can catch because you know what's happening, you know?
Yeah, Fincher has a lot of powerhouse films. Like The Social Network. Seven, Gone Girl. And those are all good. And then he has Zodiac and Benjamin Button, which I don't love. But they're all powerhouse films. But this somehow really stands out of a director that has such a big body of work. And we've covered Panic Room and Mank.
Yeah.
Which we don't love those either. Like, they're still good movies.
Yeah, they're still good. I just don't think, like, I have no desire to watch Mank again. And I've seen Panic Room maybe 3 times at this point. It's kind of one of those movies where if it's on TV, I won't turn it off.
Right.
But I'm not going to, you know,
purposefully
turn it on.
But he has a very solid body of work.
Yeah.
And just, this really stands out. This is so unique to me, especially compared to, like, 7, which maybe 7 was unique when it came out, but now it's easily duplicated.
Yeah.
I've literally seen copies of it that were, like, not even pretending they weren't copies.
Yeah.
But you can't do that with Fight Club. You can't.
I think, well, one of the other things that I think that I don't necessarily love about Fight Club is how predictable, maybe not predictable, but just how many times the twists or similar twists are done. You know, like I immediately thought of The Sixth Sense being the same type of twist, you know, where it's not different plots and stuff and different vibes even, but they essentially have the same twist, you know?
I'm not someone that cares about twists.
I know you're not, but I'm just saying. Like,
So, either way, I don't care about it. It's just a choice of storytelling. And that's not the movie as a whole. Like, yeah, I think it was predictable. Even the first time I watched it, I don't think I was, like, too shocked by it. Definitely not shocked by it at all now. But maybe it's because it's a movie that has some age to it by now. What is it, 24, 5 years? Quarter of a century?
Yeah, something like that.
Of course, other people are going to do it. They're going to be just mesmerized by this movie, and they're like, I can do something like that as well. But they can't do Fight Club as a whole. They could do the twist, but they can't do Fight Club. And that's not just on Fincher. That's, again, it's a book that has to be great for the movie to be great. And yeah, I give it a 9 out of 10 as well. It's hard to fight that this is not great, to be honest.
I agree.
But yeah, this is just starting the year. And we're going to have, I don't know how many weeks there are, 54? We're going to have 54 episodes.
52.
More than that, because we're going to cover the Oscars. Yeah. We're planning on doing some short episodes throughout the year.
Planning. We'll see if it happens.
Yeah, you can subscribe and see if it happens, and we'll see you next week.